and a very warm welcome to yet another brand new episode of World Panorama, a show that gets you a weekly roundup of all that's happening in the international arena. I'm Teena Jha. Our focus this week is on the sentencing of 3 Al-Jazeera journalists by an Egyptian court on charges that the trio conspired with the Muslim Brotherhood and spread false news, hence endangering national security. The verdict has triggered international outrage and condemnation. We'll discuss the story in detail today. First, a look at all that made headlines this week. Egyptian court finds 3 Al-Jazeera journalists guilty of conspiring with Muslim Brotherhood, sentences them to 7 years in jail, sparks international outrage. Deadly blast rocks crowded shopping mall in Nigerian capital Abuja. At least 22 people killed, over 50 injured. Several stranded Indian workers return from strife-torn Iraq, complain of ill treatment by the Iraqi administration and the embassy. Uruguayan striker Luis Suarez banned for 9 matches in 4 months from all football-related activities. Pressure on the team to perform without their leading goal scorer. In a shocking blow to the principle of free speech, a court in Egypt has sentenced 3 journalists of Al Jazeera to between 7 and 10 years in jail. The charges against them include aiding terrorists and endangering national security. Take a look at this report.
Peter Greste, 7 years. Mohammed Fahmy, 7 years. Bahir Mohammed, 10 years. Angry scenes inside the courtroom in Cairo, where the verdict against these 3 Al Jazeera journalists was read out. The defendants, as well as some of their relatives present in court, shouted their disapproval.
Shadi Abdul Hamid Abdul Azim Ibrahim, Peter Greste بالسجن المشدد لمدة 7 سنين.
The convicted journalists include Australian Peter Greste, Al Jazeera's Kenya-based correspondent, Canadian-Egyptian national Mohammed Fahmy, the bureau chief of Al Jazeera English, and local producer Bahir Mohammed. All 3 have been charged with helping Muslim Brotherhood through their reporting, a charge denied by all of them.
7 years for Peter Greste, Repent Bahus, and 5 other 6 defendants present. My God.
Oh.
My God.
Oh,
sorry.
That's crazy.
Finish.
That's crazy.
Independent observers have questioned the lack of evidence against these journalists. Evidence provided by the prosecution included footage from channels and events with nothing to do with Egyptian politics or even Al Jazeera. It included videos of trotting horses from Sky News Arabia, a song by the Australian singer Gautier, and a BBC documentary from Somalia. Observers warn the verdict serves a chilling message to all opposition figures inside Egypt.
The Australian government is shocked at the verdict in the Peter Greste case. We are deeply dismayed by the fact that a sentence has been imposed, and we are appalled by the severity of it.
The 3 men are expected to appeal, considering it is the only legal recourse available to them now.
And to discuss the story further, we have with us on our show Colonel Rajeev Agarwal, Research Fellow at the IDSA. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
As we saw in the report right now, massive global outcry. And the world leaders in particular are appalled at what they call this verdict an unjust verdict. So do you think the international pressure could work in any way to revoke the decision of the Egyptian court?
You see, the sentencing of these 3 Al Jazeera journalists was always on the offing. Ever since the trial of the Muslim Brotherhood cadres have started, and we saw the first sentencing of 500 odd in March, followed by 628 in April, and thereafter the procession has followed on. The trial of Al Jazeera journalists was kept on pending. And now that Fateh el-Sisi has become the president, he has won the presidential elections, it was always going to happen one way or the other. And yes, I mean, international condemnation has taken place, and rightfully so, because as your report has itself shown, there was hardly any credible evidence to nail these three journalists against secessionist activities, etc. So that condemnation was bound to happen. But I personally thought that this verdict was bound to come one way or the other now that the elections are over.
But then is it a decision which is pressured by the polity of the day rather than by justice?
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. I mean, these three poor fellows have been caught in the crossfire of the politics which is being played out in Egypt. The Al-Jazeera journalists, and why not others? There were a whole lot of Western and other world journalists who were present in Egypt for the entire 3 years that this revolution has taken place. There were multiple elections, multiple stages where things took place. Morsi was ousted. There were huge demonstrations and crackdown on Morsi supporters in August 2013. But why Al-Jazeera journalists only? It is only because Al-Jazeera is based from Qatar, and Qatar is the one which is being targeted in the combined politics being played out with
So it's because of the geopolitical dispute between Egypt and Qatar, because Qatar has always been, known to be aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood, very close to the Muslim Brotherhood, and this is the one which is, financing Al Jazeera. So what we are trying to discuss is that the reason? Do you see that as that could be a factor for this verdict?
Actually, there are two reasons for it, and both relate to Qatar. One is Qatar's unflinching support for the Muslim Brotherhood, which obviously Fateh el-Sisi and the present Egyptian dispensation cannot tolerate or agree with. And second is the raging rivalry which has manifested itself in about last 1 to 2 years between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Qatar, the way it is spreading its influence, throwing money across the region to see that it is counted as a emerging big power in the Gulf region, is not to the liking of Saudi Arabia. And you might remember that there was a spat between Qatar and Saudi Arabia when the three countries, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia and UAE, withdrew their ambassadors from Qatar. So it is a two-dimensional thing. One is between Qatar and Egypt, and one is the manifestation of the spat between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which is getting manifested in Egypt.
So, like as you said, Egypt is trying to regain its ground, especially since it has now got a new president. So, could this verdict come as a setback for the new government there? Because at a time when it's trying to build good relations with the other world powers.
I really don't know how it will play out, but when we see it, how it is playing out in the present. This verdict has been announced a few days back, but despite that, John Kerry has visited Cairo, and he has announced that the military aid, etc., which was under locks ever since President Morsi was, ousted, is going to be unlocked. The military aid is going to resume. Al-Sisi has been visiting Algeria. He has gone to visit he has gone to be a part of the African Union summit, and Egypt, which was ousted and suspended from the African Union, has been reinstated there. So, yes, there will be condemnation, but in the evolving matrix of the region, whether this will play out in how Egypt is able to project its power, very difficult to say.
Also, the role of the judiciary there is in question now. So, how good is it for the health of that country now?
Judiciary has always been a factor as far as Egypt is concerned, and like Turkey, to some extent, which it was in the years of 80s and 90s before the present set of government came to power, judiciary has always been seen as a subset of the military influence. And if you take your mind back to how events have unfolded ever since Mubarak was ousted, you will see that there's a clear signature of how the judicial decisions have been influenced by what the military has wanted. Mubarak and his judges, Mubarak-era judges, could not be removed despite Morsi's best of efforts. And moment President Morsi was ousted, all the other things that were not taking place when Morsi was there have started. And we have seen this year, starting from March onward, how judiciary has played out in condemning the Muslim Brotherhood to large numbers to death sentences. That is in keeping with what the military wants, or the General Sisi wanted. Right. There cannot be any judicial, judicial or justice to 500, 600 people being sentenced to death without even having heard their plea. So yes, judiciary is in question right now. It has been a subset of military influence in Egypt, and it is likely to continue in the time.
Also, sir, we've seen in the last few days that the new president, Al-Sisi, he is, indicated that he is not going to interfere with the court's judgment. So what then will be the next course of action for the other countries?
Well, he has clearly indicated that he will not interfere in the judicial process, and there is no way that you can think that this court decision which has been handed out to the Al-Jazeera journalist could have been without his knowledge. So when you put both these things together, I do not think that this sentence is going to be reversed or totally reversed in some manner. Maybe if some kind of a pressure is built up, especially from the Australian government and the United States, there could be some diluting of the sentence or maybe deporting of these journalists. But right now, I see it very difficult that this is going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
And also, one of the reports I was going through before the show, it says over 200 journalists are currently imprisoned around the world, and many of them are in Egypt. So, can we then say that there is a decline of freedom of press in that particular country?
Yes, I mean, this is a clear example of what has happened. But when you say 200 odd journalists are around the world, you would be surprised to know that maximum journalists, as per all reports, including Amnesty International, are jailed in Turkey. Turkey is infamous for jailing the journalists and curbing some amount of press freedom when it goes against the government. Egypt is following suit because, like Turkey, Egypt, the military has got tremendous influence in the governance of the country, and that is how it is happening there also. And yes, I mean, if things go the way they are going in Egypt and Al-Sisi is not able to take a strong stand on actually delivering on the verdict that people have given him, you might see many more such instances coming to light.
Especially at a time when there is, so much of human cry around the world, there is international condemnation. What are the challenges that Al-Sisi is going to face as far as this verdict is concerned?
In terms of the challenges that Al-Sisi faces, this verdict is only one small, challenge which I'm sure he will overcome one way or the other. If people were really serious about this, verdict which has been handed out, then John Kerry visiting 2 days after this sentence has been handed out, Algeria welcoming Al-Sisi in the region, African Union readmitting Egypt after almost a year plus of suspension, and the way Egypt is projecting itself to, now re-emerge as a major player in the Arab world, especially trying to broker peace process in Syria, etc., would not happen. So I think there is some level of acceptance or that this is a small issue which might see the its own course at the end of it. There still is a plea, as your news report said, that they still have an option of plea in the court, and the Mufti has the final word. So maybe if pressure is built up or the turn of events take place in which Al-Sisi sees that this issue has to be done away with, we could see some amount of positive movement on this case. But this is a very small challenge in the whole challenge matrix that Al-Sisi faces in Egypt.
Apart from that, what are the regional challenges that Egypt could face in the coming days?
Egypt faces two sets of challenges. Internally, its economy is in shatters. One of the primary reasons why Morsi was ousted overtly was that he could not revive the economy. And second is the security situation. We just had 3 bombs going off in Cairo on 25th of June. We have had a news report in which one of the members of ISIS, which is now active in Iraq, has been arrested on suspected links with ISIL. And we know how the situation of security is there in the Sinai Peninsula. So security is one of the primary problems as far as Egypt is going to face. And when you when you see this in context of the situation in Libya and how the cross-border movement of arms and cadres and militia are taking place, this is a major problem that Egypt is going to face. So security and economy, these are the 2 major challenges. Coming to the region, yes, even President Morsi tried to extend that Egypt is now becoming reasserting itself as a major power. Al-Sisi is going to do the same, because there's a clear realization in Egypt that time has come for Egypt to reassert itself as a major Arab power. Right. So it is going to happen one way or the other.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the show and giving us those details. Well, time now for a very short break. Another top story of the week. Several Indian workers escaped from Iraq. Thousands still stranded. We get you all the details after this very short break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching World Panorama. The latest from Iraq. Several Indian workers returned from the strife-torn country early Friday. They've complained of ill treatment by the Iraqi administration and the embassy. Meanwhile, rebel fighters of the ISIS have advanced to capital Baghdad from new strongholds along the Syrian border. Here's a report.
About 10,000 Indians are working in Iraq currently, mostly in areas unaffected by the fighting between the ISIS and the National Army. But there are about 100 Indians trapped in areas overrun by violence. Some of those lucky enough to have escaped recount their horror.
अभी वहाँ का स्थिति बहुत ही ख़राब चल रहा है। हमारे इंडिया गवर्नमेंट से स्थिति है कि जितना भी वहाँ हिंदुस्तान के बंदे फंसे हुए हैं उनको जितना जल्दी बाहर निकाला जाए। वहाँ की गवर्नमेंट खाने पीने की कोई इल्तजा नहीं दे रही वहाँ पे। बहुत कठिनाई के जो भी बंदा फंसा हुआ बहुत कठिनाई से वहाँ पर आ रही है। बस हमारी यार कोई इल्तजा नहीं। बस मैं तो कतर के ज़रिए से भाग करके आया हूँ।
हालचाल बहुत बुरा है, बहुत बुरा स्थिति है। सरकार ये एम्बेसी को फ़ोन करते हैं, एम्बेसी कुछ कर ही नहीं रहा। बस खाली 3 महीना से आदमी को टाला रहा है, कुछ कर ही नहीं रहा।
40 Indian construction workers were kidnapped by ISIS rebels in Mosul last week. No ransom demand has been received yet. The government is also in touch with several other Indians in Iraq, including 46 nurses in Tikrit. Meanwhile, in Iraq, British Foreign Secretary William Hague met Kurdish President Masoud Barzani in the Kurdistan region. The meeting comes a day after Hague held talks with Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki in Baghdad.
We stand with you in rejecting the vile ideology and crimes of terrorists. And as in Baghdad yesterday, my message is the need to form an inclusive new government in Baghdad as soon as possible that can implement the most effective possible political and security response.
As the rebels extend their reach across Iraq, Prime Minister al-Maliki is being urged to widen his government's sectarian makeup or face the prospect of isolation and defeat. Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani, the Shiite sect's most influential cleric, has called for Iraq's political blocs to agree on the next government's prime minister, parliament speaker and president before parliament meets. The call comes even as rebels are advancing towards Baghdad. On Thursday, they took a town, Mansuriyat al-Jabal, about an hour away from the capital that is home to 4 natural gas fields.
And another big news of the week, at least 22 people are reported killed after an explosion rocked a busy shopping mall in the Nigerian capital Abuja on Wednesday. The blast comes just 2 days after more than 8 people were killed in a blast at a medical college in the turmoil-hit country. Take a look.
The Nigerian capital woke up to yet another day of deadly blasts, the second one in 3 days. At least 22 people are dead, over 50 injured when the explosion slid through a crowded shopping mall in Abuja city during rush hour on Wednesday. Nigerians were preparing to watch their country's Super Eagles play Argentina at the World Cup in Brazil. Many shops at the mall have television screens, but it was unclear if the explosion was timed to coincide with the match that started an hour later.
I lost a driver that has 3 wives and 8 children. And this driver is not supposed to bring me here, but I forced him. I begged him to take me here. And this is the end.
Emergency services were rushed to the spot soon after the blast. Police and army blocked off the surrounding area. Thick haze of smoke lingered over the area as the bomb squad combed the area for explosives. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks.
You can all see that we just recorded an unfortunate bomb blast here. For now, we cannot tell you much. We can't tell you instantly, we can't give you instantly the casualty figure.
There's been a spate of bomb and gun attacks in Nigeria in recent months. Islamist militant group Boko Haram is blamed for most of them. In April, more than 70 people were killed in a bomb blast at a bus stop in an attack claimed by Boko Haram. The group also said it was behind a car bomb attack in May, which killed at least 19 people. It also carried out a deadly car bomb attack on the United Nations building in the Nigerian capital in 2011. More recently, it has become a source of growing international concern since the recent abduction of more than 200 girls from a school in northern Nigeria.
Now a look at all the other global news this week.
The US economy suffered its worst performance for 5 years in the first quarter of 2014. The economy shrank at an annualized rate of 2.9% in the first 3 months. This drop follows an increase of 3.4% at an annual rate in the second half of 2013. The gap between the second and third estimates of US growth for the quarter is the largest on record. US Secretary of State John Kerry has urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to publicly call on separatists in Ukraine to lay down arms. He said Russia would face greater costs unless it took action to show it supported peace in Ukraine. Earlier, German Chancellor Angela Merkel also warned Russia of new sanctions after fresh clashes in eastern Ukraine. A suicide bomber blew himself up in his room at a Beirut hotel on Wednesday as Lebanese security forces raided the premises. 11 people were injured when a suicide bomber blew himself up. The blast toward the end of the evening rush hour took place inside the Juroy Hotel in Beirut's Roche district. The bombing is the latest in a string of attacks and security scares in Lebanon over the past week that has sparked fears of renewed violence in the country. Pakistani police have arrested hundreds of people after gunmen opened fire on a passenger plane during its landing approach. The attack at Peshawar airport in the country's northwest killed a woman passenger and wounded 2 crew members and has raised further questions about aircraft safety in Pakistan. The Pakistan International Airlines flight landing in Peshawar from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia came under fire on Tuesday as it descended with more than 170 passengers on board. Israeli jets carried out a series of airstrikes on militants in Gaza on Tuesday. The attack struck training grounds used by Palestinian militants, leaving 2 people injured. The Israeli military said that it carried out airstrikes in Gaza overnight in retaliation for several rockets fired by militants into Israel. It also targeted sites where rockets had been launched and a weapon storage facility.
Time now to get you all the sports news this week.
Uruguayan forward Luis Suarez is back in controversies, and the social networking site Twitter is raging with tweets over the latest biting incident in the Italy-Uruguay match. Luis Suarez clashed with Italy's defender Giorgio Chiellini in the second half of the match. Footage from various angles shows Suarez making contact with the player's shoulder. Some sportsmen were shocked to see the incident. England's Michael Owen posted on Twitter, "Tell me I'm seeing things. Surely Suarez didn't bite someone again." Another reaction came from the Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt. He posted, "Did Suarez really bite again?" England fell 2 balls short of a remarkable escape as Sri Lanka won the second test to secure a 1-0 series victory. Last man James Anderson was caught at leg gully of Shaminda Iranga from the penultimate ball of the final day at Headingley. The Test series loss also completed a clean sweep for Sri Lanka after victories in the T20 and One-Day series. With the aim to bury the ghosts of a disastrous tour of 2011, a new-look Indian cricket team would be eyeing a positive start to their 2.5-month-long tour of England. The visitors, led by skipper Mahendra Singh Dhoni, reached London last weekend ahead of what will be a grueling tour, including 5 back-to-back tests, 5 ODIs and 1 T20 international. India failed to register a single win in their last tour, having lost the Test Series 0-4, the 5-match ODI Series 0-3 and also the lone T20 international. In the latest FIH men's and women's world rankings following the conclusion of the Hockey World Cup, the winners of both the men's and women's championships, Australia and the Netherlands, have maintained their positions at the top of the rankings. Indian men have dropped 1 place to the 9th position. India finished a lowly 9th in the World Cup after beating South Korea 3-0 at the Kyocera Stadium, The Hague, on June 14th. Indian women remain static at 13th.
And now look at all the news from the world of glamour.
Mel Gibson is set to be awarded the Lifetime Honour at Karlovy Vary Festival. According to reports, the Braveheart star will receive the Crystal Globe for Lifetime Achievement. The 49th edition of the Central European film will also screen Andrei Zeviak in Cez Khan entry Leviathan and a special screening of David Lynch's Wild at Heart. The festival's highest award goes to the actor, director and producer who made his name internationally known, playing the title role in George Miller's 1979 futuristic action movie Mad Max. Sylvester Stallone is all set to write and star in Rambo 5. The movie will reportedly see the troubled Vietnam vet square off against a Mexican drug cartel, and the 67-year-old star referred to the project as his version of No Country for Old Men. Stallone first played John Rambo in the 1982 movie First Blood, returning to the role for sequels released in 1985 and 1988 before reprising the character 2 decades later in the 2008 movie. A working draft of one of Bob Dylan's most popular songs, Like a Rolling Stone, has set a record for acquiring $2 million at the Sotheby's auction. The manuscript, said to be the only known draft of the final lyrics, earned the title of a popular music manuscript at the auction. The unidentified seller is described as a long-time fan of the 73-year-old singer, and he bought the manuscript directly from him. Cheryl Cole has been voted as Britain's most influential beauty icon as per a survey held by Essential.com. The 30-year-old singer Cole, who is currently filming the new series of The X Factor and had already won multiple Sexiest Woman awards, beat actress Michelle Keegan to claim the top spot. The third place was acquired by Kate Moss, followed by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, the Duchess of Cambridge Kate Middleton, Jennifer Aston, Rihanna, Keira Knightley, Miranda Kerr and Audrey Hepburn, who made the top 10. Justin Bieber was reportedly in the passenger seat of a car which crashed outside Mastro's restaurant in Beverly Hills. Reports revealed that the 20-year-old Canadian musician, who was traveling in a black Cadillac Escalade, wasn't hurt after a BMW SUV collided into it. Sources added that the baby hitmaker, who was seen inspecting the damage, went back into the car after the incident.
And that's it on this edition of World Panorama. But before we go, we leave you with visuals of Lionel Messi's goals in the group stages of the World Cup. Enjoy and thanks for watching.